Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's Bossed Up panel, all about management best practices for remote teams. I'm going to be your host for today's panel. I'm Emilie Aries, the founder and CEO of Bossed Up, and I'm so delighted to see you here. We've been hosting panels all week and are just delighted by how many folks from all over the world are tuning in. And that's really what I want to start with, is to hear from you. So if you're tuning in right now, go ahead to the top or bottom of your screen, click on the chat icon, or you might see a more button with 3 dots that you have to click on first to find chat. In chat, make sure to select all panelists and attendees, or everyone, in the drop-down menu, and then let me know where you're tuning in from. We always like to start our webinars off this way, so I know who's coming in from where, how many folks are reaching today, how many different parts of the world are represented here. And if this is your very first time tuning in for a Bossed Up event, I want to know as well. We've got Stefan from Germany, a fellow Denver, Coloradan here, a couple Austinites here in the house, Floridians, Iowa, awesome. Tess, welcome to your first webinar. So delighted to have you here. Let's see, Indiana, Texas, Pennsylvania, lots of Coloradans here today. Welcome to your first Bossed Up event from Houston. It is really delightful to have y'all here, and I'm not gonna lie, it has been a year-long week for all of us. Am I right? Like, everyone is not firing on all cylinders right now, even if you are fortunate enough like we are to have our good health still, and I'm so grateful for that. And I think that's our top priority, right, is to stay healthy and stay safe and make sure your loved ones are as well. But today we are continuing our practice of bringing people together virtually when we can't bring people together in person. Here at Bossed Up, it's our philosophy and our mission really to help you craft a happy, healthy, and sustainable career path. And in the midst of social isolation, it has given me such an emotional boost to connect with such great panelists all week long. And I'll tell you more about our other panels if you miss them. To bring folks together and just kind of commiserate a little bit and then get down to business. So if you're having a tough week, if you're having a long week, you're not alone. And if you find yourself in the position of management or in a leadership position, it is really hard to stay strong for everyone else too. So we're going to talk about that today. Do let me know in chat, what made you join today? Why are you here? What are you hoping to learn? Are you a manager? Are you an aspiring manager? Are you all of a sudden, like many of us, finding yourselves working remotely? And let us know what you'd like to gain from today. Feel free to take screenshots if you want to remember any of these slides. I will be making the recording later available as well today. And you can find us on the internet at boss.org or Emilie Aries if you want to keep in touch, be friends on social media. So for those of you who I have yet to meet, it's great to meet you. I am a speaker, author, and podcast host. If you are a podcast fan or looking for some ways to entertain yourself audibly this time, definitely subscribe to the Bossed Up podcast. We have new episodes out every Tuesday and Thursday, and we're responding in real time to what is happening and how it's impacting your career and life. If you're an audio book listener, you might want to check out my book, Bossed Up, A Grown Woman's Guide to Getting Your Shit Together, which seems timely now, but actually came out about 9 months ago, and it is available on demand on audible.com. And I am supposed to be traveling the world right now, speaking at companies and conferences and hosting trainings for Women's History Month, and all of that has been canceled for this month and next. So while I am in this downtime period, know that I am delighted to be speaking virtually as much as I can. And if I can ever be of service to your team, especially since I'm still booking up for the fall, don't hesitate to reach out and keep me in mind for all your diversity and inclusion needs. So let's see what people are tuning in here for. First time managing people working remotely and want to have some new tools in my tool bag here. I'm a law firm administrator looking for ideas to keep remote working employees motivated and connected. Office manager, 5-person team. Oh, they're coming in so fast. Lots coming in here. Well, you are all in the right place. A newish manager, you are directly going to benefit from this because the panelists we have here today are going to drop some major gems of wisdom on y'all. So let's get right to it. I want to introduce you to our fabulous guest today. Michelle King is a leader, is a manager, is a total boss, a speaker, a trainer. In fact, she was supposed to be joining me, I would have been flying in today to San Francisco at Bossed Up Boot Camp this weekend, which of course had to be canceled / postponed. I will tell you more about Bossed Up Boot Camp and give you a special opportunity to join us at a discounted rate if you stick around and stick with us throughout today's conversation. But Michelle is a member of the Bossed Up Trainer team, and we're so delighted to have you joining us here virtually. Lauren Piner is similarly a fellow entrepreneur here in the Denver region. She has always really managed remote teams and brings a unique perspective from her perspective as an entrepreneur, growing a very robust dog walking operation called Positively Pooches that you should definitely check out. Lauren, thanks for being here. And Jessica Aries, whose last name, yes, is the same as mine, not by coincidence. I am lucky enough to have had Jessica been the wonderful woman to marry my brother and be my sister-in-law. We're so delighted to have you here. Jessica is a legal marketing expert, a career strategist, and someone who's going to bring a ton of perspective based on her work, which you can learn more about at byaries.com. All right, ladies, y'all ready to jump in? Let's make sure we're unmuted if we haven't already. I want to ask you, I have just a few questions really for our panelists, and then chat is where your questions belong, everybody. So feel free to put your questions in chat so I can continue to keep this engaged and ask your questions for you as well. First and foremost, how are some of the best organizations that you've seen adapting and making accommodations possible in the face of this mass disruption we all find ourselves in? Michelle, do you want to get us started?
Yeah, sure. Great. Great question. So what I'm seeing trend-wise, and I think the other panelists can probably add to this too, is companies really trying to manage how to deal with distributed teams and remote working. And so really trying to make sure that people have firm ideas about how to actually get into their systems when they're working from home and managing IT, which can be really tricky for some people, especially if they're just used to sitting down at their desk and everything just works, and then you have to get it set up at home. But also doing things like extending leave policies. So for instance, my company, which is a large software company, they took their standard 5-day leave and extended it to 10 days of leave and said, take it as you need for your manager. Flex time, I'm seeing a lot of companies really start to invest in flex time and saying, let's look at different scheduling and how we can do that. And even flex time to be, especially I saw some people saying, oh, I work on global teams. Well, you're dealing with a lot of time zones. So really looking at maybe working 4 days a week instead of 5 days a week, so you can work some of those longer hours on some of those days. So some of those types of things. And then of course, supplying also support for, like, I'm a mindfulness instructor, and we have had a plethora of people asking for webinars or sessions. We've extended our mindfulness sessions, et cetera. So really trying to give people tools to manage stress is part of the biggest thing, right? And uncertainty. So those are some of the things I've been seeing for sure.
Yeah. And that makes a lot of sense. Lauren, on the small business scale, what kinds of adaptations are you faced with now, especially if you're not a global tech company who can, turn on a dime or has resources? Like, I can relate to that right now. What kinds of adaptations do you feel like are important for all of us, but especially small businesses, to think about?
Yeah, so one of the things that I've tried to enforce with my team is consistency. While I do manage a remote team, I own a dog walking company, and so everybody's out and kind of doing their thing, but I would do in-person meetings pretty consistently. So with the dog walking staff, we would do those every 2 months or so, and with the admin staff, we would do them at least monthly, sometimes more often if we had, big projects, big changes coming up. So one of the things I have really prioritized is to make sure that everybody is still getting those meetings, even if they are like a Zoom meeting, which means I'm doing a lot of tech training because a lot of my dog walkers have never done a Zoom meeting before. So, it's kind of been like an interesting challenge for me. But I think having the consistency, and especially in such uncertain times, like my dog walkers knowing that I'm still there and that a lot of this stuff is going to keep going, even if we do have to take a little bit of a break. A lot of pretty much all of my dog walkers are working on reduced hours right now. And but like knowing that they still get to have their meeting, they still get to have some FaceTime with me, even if it is through a computer or phone. You know, they can still ask the questions they might have
Totally.
and get the answers they need.
And FaceTime, even if it is virtual, sounds really important right now for managing stress. Definitely.
Yeah,
Jess, what would you add to that?
Well, so I work in legal predominantly, and I've seen that those law firms that have been the most progressive and kind of their flexible work environments have really come out on top right now. You know, they're not training the employees how to log into Zoom because their employees are native Zoom users.
Yeah.
So what we're really finding is that they're able to focus on serving their clients, whereas the rest of the folk are just struggling to kind of get their IT infrastructure up in place. And so it really, I think, shows the greatness or the power of being a progressive organization and thinking about flexible work environments, because I know a lot of the law firms that I've worked for in the past and have worked with, they really, those that have invested in the working parent and the working mom, they're really reaping the benefits right now. So I bravo to them, you know?
Yeah, that is such an interesting point, how resiliency within your company can come from really taking care of your people.
Absolutely.
What a radical notion. I think we're all learning that.
You know, the people that are doing the work need to be taken care of so they can actually get the work done, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
It is an interesting reprioritization that we're seeing right now, isn't it? I also have to give a shout out to my little baby niece, who is a month and a half old, who Jessica is caring for in addition to being here today. So shout out to you, Jess, for what a way to disrupt maternity leave too.
Yeah.
Yes.
So thank you for joining us today.
Yeah.
All right. So let's think about strategically, if you're managing a team and you're here trying to figure out how to solve for problems you might not be able to see, right? Especially with schools closed, like you can't see directly into the day-to-day lives of your workers right now. It can be a little bit hard to glean what the hell is going on and how we can best support. So what are some of the common challenges that you think managers need to be aware of when managing remote teams? Whoever wants to jump in can jump right in on that.
Well, I mean, I manage a remote team, and so I know a lot of you do, but I've done this for a lot of years, global remote teams. And obviously I saw someone had said they were managing like 53 people globally or something.
53 countries.
53 countries, yes, people in 53 countries, right? And so I think, you know, one of the things that's really important is to have a communication strategy, because having something where I think, Jessica, you mentioned, or Lauren, one of you had said about consistency. Lauren said it. So one of the things I do with my team, and this is one of the things that will be really helpful to you, is a lot of companies are offering free things for either schools and or just individuals right now. So if you don't have this right now, it might be something to think about. But my team primarily uses Slack, and then we also do use Microsoft Teams. And so we are literally talking all day long. And when I get up in the morning, I'm on the West Coast, and a lot of my team is on the East Coast. I have people in Europe. I will get those messages first thing in the morning and be able to respond to them right away. I've adjusted my working hours to be a little bit more accommodating, but we do a lot of like fun things and also just things that where we can communicate, because you can have direct messaging as well as groups. You can make different channels in Slack. So we have one for a project we're working on, and then we have a separate one that's just for our team. And then we have one that's like, you know, fun updates. So we're all doing this thing right now where one of the people that I work with has these little workout cards, and so he'll post them in the morning, and then we all do the workout, and then we talk about how we did.
Good,
So we try to, you know, one of the things I would say is just not make it all business, to like encourage people to talk about how they're doing. I've extended our team meetings to an hour and a half, and the first 30 minutes we just talk about how everybody's doing and what challenges they're facing. And so what I said from the beginning with my team was, listen, I know this is very new and different. I mean, we're used to working from home, but people have kids at home. One of my people has a 1,000 square foot apartment, and she's in there with her husband and 2 kids trying to work.
Yikes.
And I was like, listen, I save your sanity. if you need to take a break in the middle of the day, please just tell me. So one of the nice things about Slack is someone can just IM me, you know, can really direct message me right away. I get a notification. They can say, hey, listen, I got to take a break for an hour, and they can go. So the communication channel, creating a really distinct, consistent communication channel, super important.
Totally. We're going to talk more about that too.
Yeah.
Jess, what other challenges, especially as someone who's got an infant at home, but what are the other challenges that managers need to be aware of and mindful of when it comes to supporting workers right now?
Well, not everyone's a great remote worker. We all kind of presume that everyone enjoys working remotely, but there are some people who don't want to be stuck at home all day, and they actually can suffer from depression, loneliness, all kinds of issues. And getting them engaged, making sure you're having kind of video chats, as you were saying, Michelle, having this opportunity to keep those communication lines open is so important. I actually saw a really good post from a fellow legal marketer where she was taking her team, they're global, and it's Friday today, so I think I can mention this. She said that they put on a challenge called It's 5 o'clock somewhere, and at 5 o'clock they all made a cocktail at home and took pictures and uploaded it to their Slack channel.
Oh my God, I love it.
And
That's
we're like
awesome.
sharing their cocktails that they were having.
It's perfect time for the quarantini recipe.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
That is
I
great.
love it.
Things like that, you know, to get people engaged and excited and not feel so alone, because it really, I mean, I'm a pretty outgoing person, and being on maternity leave these last 6 weeks has been rough, guys. So if this lasts any more than, you know, a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, however long we have to kind of do this, we're going to have to find those opportunities to connect and engage with each other, and also not presume that our best workers are going to be their best selves, you know, remotely.
Totally.
Sometimes they may suffer from productivity issues, from distractions, from the fact that they're trying to be 3 things at once, you know, parent, childcare giver, you know, teacher, and remote worker. So I think just remembering that we're all humans right now, and we're all kind of facing this challenge as it goes and trying to figure it out. You know,
I think that's so key. You know, I just have to shout out to the folks in chat who are saying, I just had a Zoom happy hour yesterday. And Brittany says, we're doing happy hour as well. Just getting to chat and meet new team members who started this week. Oof, what a time to start. It's so exciting, right? And I heard another panelist this week mention the idea of virtual lunchrooms.
Yes.
You know, for just providing the space for people to pop in and out and have lunch together. In a sort of casual environment. It's really amazing the ingenuity that's coming out of this right now. Lauren, when it comes to leading with compassion, right, and acknowledging the humanity, it's also really hard to balance your desire to be compassionate towards your workers and be compassionate towards yourself when business is not going well, right? I think there are so many of us, Bossed Up included, who are like, oh shit, there go all my projections. Okay, how are we going to get through this? I don't want to drop an F-bomb. I know it's Friday, but that should be the only F-bomb I drop today. But it's like, oh my goodness, how do I balance the desire for accountability with my team, consistency, as you said, with compassion? So what is your, how are you starting to figure that out?
I think the biggest thing, and this has always been true, but it's even more true now, is to trust your employees. You know, you probably hired them for a reason, and hopefully that's, that reason is still there. I think if you tend to be a micromanager, now is a really good time to maybe do some reading and kind of expand your management skill set, because you really can't micromanage when your team is remote. And I mean, that can be challenging even on site, but if you're constantly sending messages and texting and emailing and saying like, is this getting done? Is this getting done? Is this getting done? You know, I mean, your staff is going to be irritated for one thing, and they're not going to be as productive, because every time they get into a zone, they get a ping from an email from you that is asking if they've done it, and they're probably working on it right now. So I think if you have the kind of work that you can check a little bit without like kind of digging in and drilling down on your team, like just kind of take a peek, make sure like the list is getting, like the to-do list is getting checked off. And you can do stuff like that in Slack channels and things like that, and kind of make sure that all of that stuff is still getting done without just, you know, kind of aggressively chasing your employees about it. You'll find a lot more productivity, I think, in your work. And then I think the other thing is like, one of the things that's really hard to see when you have a remote team is how your team is treating each other. So you might have, you know, like a newer staff person or not a newer staff person, but they just work really differently when they're at home, and maybe their communication in the office is great, but their like texts and emails just come off kind of, you know, rude or aggressive or whatever. And you know, it's important, like you know, it's kind of a fine line. You don't want to gossip about your staff with the rest of your staff, but you do want to know how they're treating each other. And so if you have like, if some of your staff is having trouble with other parts of your staff, like you need to know that. And I think it's a good time to kind of practice like in person, or not in person, but individual calls with
one-on-ones.
each person. As much as you can. I mean, obviously some of you are managing massive staffs, and that's going to be a little different than, you know, me managing 20 people, but you know, that kind of thing, especially if they have to work in concert with each other, making sure that that work is running smoothly now that they're communicating in possibly an entirely different way than they were a week ago, is really important.
Absolutely. Let's talk a little more about one-on-ones. Michelle, what are some best practices for one-on-ones that we should keep in mind, especially given these very stressful times?
Yeah, I think, so I want to add a little bit to what Lauren said. One thing I want to add, and I'll go to the one-on-ones, is this is really important. I can't emphasize this enough, especially with working with remote teams, is you cannot assume they know what the expectations are. So literally writing them down and saying, this is how I have a standard operating procedure document. It's one page, and this is how we are going to behave. This is how we conduct one-on-ones. This is when I expect you to meet, etc. And that has made a huge difference. So sit down and think about what are the expectations, and make sure you agree on them and that everybody knows what they are. It makes things so much easier.
Right.
So just wanted to add that piece to it.
Well,
but
actually,
one-on-ones,
to jump in on that, Brene Brown, whose work is already coming up for me, and I want to mention a few of her best practices, but she says clear is kind. When you presume good intentions and then combine good intentions and a presumption of good intentions with clear expectations, those people want to make you happy. So I think it's really important, especially for those who struggle with micromanagement, which I get, you know, I'm a bit of a control freak. I'm not really a micromanager, but I am a bit of a control freak. And so sometimes writing out those SOPs, we are renewing all of our SOPs at Bossed Up right now. It is so helpful.
Super helpful. So the one-on-one, so first of all, I'd like to recommend a collaboration tool that's free. It's called Dabra, and so it's dabra.ai. And what it does for you with your one-on-ones is two things. One, it creates a collaboration space which you can track everything from week to week, over and over. You know, like you can scroll through and see what your expectations were. You can move things from one week to the other super easily. The other thing it does is it gives you an opportunity to go in and you answer questions, and the person you're meeting with answers questions, and then it tells you how to best have a meeting with that person. Wow. So I have people on my teams who are introverts, and it'll say, hey, this person needs a lot of detail. Or somebody that's like, I just want the big picture. I don't need a lot of detail. So that's really helpful. It's completely free, dabra.ai. Then the second thing is when you go into the one-on-one meetings, really going in with making sure that it's a shared agenda, because a lot of times managers are like, here's what I want you to know. And they don't leave space for the person to say, but I need to talk about this. So that's the other thing about that collaborative space, is each of you can add in agenda items whenever you need to.
Love that.
So I love that piece of it, because Dabra, D-A-B-R-A, like abracadabra.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So
and
so
that,
Oh, I was just going to say, if Jess wanted to add anything to the one-on-one question.
Yeah. So that's what I would say.
Yeah. Thank you.
I just think right now more than ever, one-on-ones, the first maybe, I don't know how long your one-on-ones are, but the one-on-ones that I usually have are 30 minutes. The first maybe 10 to 15 minutes should just be checking in with the person, making sure they're okay. You know, there's so much anxiety and worry going on right now. And as someone who's run an entire law firm, I can tell you, like, if you don't address those personal needs with your employees first, you are never going to be able to be productive, contributing members of your team, because their mind is on their biggest worries, right? And if it's you know, groceries or getting Clorox or, you know, feeding their baby, that's where their mind's going to be.
Yeah.
So really spending that time to like in their one-on-ones, checking in with them, making sure they're okay, they're feeling good about everything. I mean, you're not going to be able to solve the world's problems,
Yeah.
right? But as long as you can make them feel like a human being and like relate to them, I think it'll move the needle so much farther for you later when you're trying to motivate them to, you know, work on something, engage in a project, you know, because you've got the back and you understand what's going on at home.
Totally. And I always have to catch myself. I'm a bit of an over functioner in the face of stress sometimes. And so I'll like write out this email that's like, hey, how's this going? What's happening here? And then I'll go to the top before I send it and I'll write, I hope this email finds you and your loved ones safe and healthy.
Yeah.
And I hope you're doing okay. And I, you know, you forget, sometimes you're so anxious yourself and you get right to the thing at hand and you're like, whoop, put that humanity back at the top. Like, don't forget to put that in before you get there. I love that. You know, this question that was, I was planning for later is starting to come up in chat. So I want to ask about tools in particular. We've talked a lot about communication, how important it is to err on the side of over communication in this current climate. And we've already mentioned tools like Dabra AI, Slack. We've got a question in chat from Alden about SOPs. Like, do you have any references or recommendations on where to learn how to write a good SOP? But overall, what is the technology that you are relying on as a manager right now? Let's start with Lauren, and then we'll take it from there. What's the technology used to manage projects, manage people, manage your team, communicate, etc.?
Yeah, so I have been using my just regular cell phone for a really long time.
You mean for the phone functionality?
For the phone, yeah, I know. Stop the presses.
I love this answer so much already.
I mean, so my staff, because my staff is remote, a lot of times we're driving around. I mean, if my manager is interviewing a new dog walker, for example, and I'm covering a walk because somebody got a flat tire, then, we're driving. And so we can't text, we can't really FaceTime, like we have to call, especially if it's something urgent. And so we, my general manager, she's like my operations manager and she does all my hiring, and training, most of the training. And so she and I often talk like every day.
Yeah.
And sometimes for, 10 minutes, sometimes for a couple hours. And it really, it's not always about work. We usually start the call about work, but just having that connection and, being able to know someone like that is great. And I call the other two admin staff that I have, I call them pretty consistently too, not quite as often. But that's probably like the biggest thing. Like I could get through managing the team remotely as long as I had a phone. I mean, like the video chats and stuff are great, especially to replace our in-person meetings, but really the phone is what does it for me. So, and we
underscore how much more information you can get across in a telephone call than in a email, especially when stress is running high, when tempers are running high, how much better it is to have vocal tone going for you than a curt email that could be totally misread. Yeah. And if I get one more text that says, hey, can I call you? I'm going to lose my mind. Like, for God's sakes, people, please, this is my personal soapbox, but I'm a big believer in just calling and leaving a message or leaving a text message after the fact. Yeah. And if they can't pick up, they won't pick up.
So I think, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I think that depends on how you've been doing business before.
True. Because welcome to my TED Talk. Thank you for coming. But yes.
I mean, I think you're right, but I think that if like for us, like sometimes when a dog walker is calling me, it's because there's an emergency. And the emergency could be simple, like they can't get in the house. Sure. Or it could be something really bad, like the dog is really sick or something, or even worse. So like, for me, sometimes sending me a text message that's like, hey, I'm going to call, in 20 minutes, I just want to chat, or I just have a quick question. Yeah. Can be really helpful for my anxiety levels.
Well, I was going to say, we live in a world now where a phone call is like, oh my God.
Yeah, somebody died, right?
Who's calling me?
So, but I think just knowing your staff well enough to know what matters for them. Like I tell my staff, like, this is helpful for me. And if you just call me out of the blue, there's a chance, depending on what's going on in the rest of my day, that I'm going to be like, oh my God, are you alive? Like,
Yeah,
That's
is the
fair.
dog alive? Is everything okay? And so like, I tell my staff what communication I need
yes.
for it
That's
to work
good.
for me,
Mhm.
and they're welcome to tell me whatever works for them as well.
Yeah.
That's
Jess,
really important. Love that.
I
Yeah.
love
What you have
that.
to tell them what works for you too. You're in this too,
Mhm.
Yes.
right? Absolutely
Yeah.
important. Such a good point, Lauren.
Thank you.
Jess, any tools that you want to mention? And then I want to hear from you, Michelle.
Yeah, I put together a little list. I don't want to overwhelm people, but speaking of standard operating procedures, some tools that I like to use for that in particular, I'm a big visual learner. And so whenever I'm training someone or trying to show them how to do something, I'm making a Loom video. I'm using Snagit or something like that to make like detailed visual instructions of my expectations. I'm not relying just on the written word because I like visuals. So those are two tools I use for standard operating procedures, putting those together.
Quick clarifying question. Is it Loom, Loom?
Yes.
Okay,
And it's
great.
a free tool, and you can record, your screen basically and yourself, and you can, document things and put arrows on things and all that kind of stuff. So really nice if you're a visual learner. And then in terms of like project management, my tool of choice right now is ClickUp, but there's a lot out there. There's like Todoist, Asana, Basecamp, Trello. So if you're, trying to manage a team right now, and I wouldn't recommend trying to learn a whole new project management tool right now, but if you're trying to manage a team and you're thinking long-term, if this is like a long-term solution for you, remote employees, you need a project management tool. It'll make your life so much easier. And then video tools, things like Zoom, Google Hangouts, GoToMeetings, Skype, any of those. And then collaboration tools. I love Slack. I love Microsoft Teams. So that's kind of my list. I had kind of a breakdown.
She was like,
I had a feeling you might have one. I love it. That's what Jess's website is full of too. So if you like lists and downloadables, check out her site. Michelle, what else? If there's anything you'd add.
Yeah, I mean, Jess covered so much of it. That's great. Yeah.
Sorry.
So I love it. So also I will say, because you were mentioning visual learners, another awesome tool that we use to collaborate visually is called Mural, Mural. And it's a collaboration space where you can make it almost looks like little Post-its, and you can create org charts or any kind of other charts that you want in it. I love that tool for collaboration space. And Smart Sheets. Smart Sheets are a great project management collaboration tool. Lots of ability to create reporting out of there and different ways to see it. You can see it like little cards. You can see it as an actual project with Gantt charts. You can just see it as a list. It's very flexible, and we use it for almost all of our projects. So that's another, again, re-emphasize Slack and Microsoft Teams. It's just an ongoing check-in. And unlike a lot of IMing software, like some Skype has IMs, depending on your company policy, they may not save them. They don't. But in Skype, you have everything. So you can always go back and search. You can pin stuff. It's just such a great collaboration tool for that. And then here's one other thing I want to say about email, because I personally really hate email. I just feel like we're just inundated with it.
Me too.
I just hate it. I'm like, just ban email. But here's the thing you should know is that people stop reading after 1,200 characters.
Okay.
So if you're sending this like five paragraph email, I assure you that like after about 1,200 characters, people are tuning out.
That's
whatever
5
you
tweets.
Yes, whatever you want to get into this thing, you need to be concise, specific, and always make sure that in your subject line, if you want them to take action, it says in brackets, in all capitals, action, and then a date. Put those in the subject line. So while you're managing these teams, if you have urgent stuff, put what you want. Action, please respond. Subject, date.
Yeah.
So that
and
they
don't
know.
abuse it.
No.
Yeah.
Don't abuse it. Yeah, for sure. But just being really clear and concise in your messaging, and it's easy to just sort of off the top of your head put something.
Yeah.
And in, like in Lauren's situation, she's managing all kinds of things at the same time, so I'm sure she's learned to be very concise. But just keeping that in mind, because people are going to get overwhelmed by information too, and that they're not used to, right?
Absolutely.
So concise.
I love
That's good.
it.
Yeah.
Really, really great tips, y'all. I want to ask you about communication rituals. I feel like right now, especially while we're working remotely, in the theme of consistency, kind of carrying that thread forward, what kinds of communication rituals do you find yourselves relying on, whether it's work related or emotional, life related, to kind of ground you and your teams and keep people feeling connected when we're truly quite disconnected right now for the sake of everybody?
So I use a thing called the digital check-in. So it's essentially, I've been kind of teasing this when I was promoting this this webinar for all my followers. But the digital check-in essentially for me is it's my way of creating the open door policy when being remote. Because I very much as a manager want my employees to come into me when they're having a problem or if they have a question and that question is holding up their entire task list, right? I want them to come chat with me. So because of the way we're working remotely, we're constantly in conference calls and stuff like that. I have created a digital check-in system where essentially I have 15 minutes set aside in the morning, midday, and at the very end of the day where anyone can book that time with me and it becomes my open door policy time. Cool. So the idea being that you don't have to, in the morning if you get there, I usually do it like at 9:45, right before my first 10 o'clock meeting. So you get into the office, you start looking through your email, you realize, I don't know what my next step is here, right? As an employee, I need to ask Jessica, right? Book it on my 15-minute time slot, and then you can chat with me. We can get clarification on whatever the questions are, whatever the issues are. And it's not an email that gets stuck in my inbox that I don't get to read until 1 o'clock,
Yeah. And then you're not constantly interrupted by employees.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, I might have to steal that.
To be honest,
I know, I like that.
When I'm working remotely, I'm in the call, I don't have necessarily the time to respond to the cell phone that's ringing because I'm in another meeting,
Ah, yeah.
So if I don't book that time and make it sacred on my calendar, it doesn't happen, So that's creating that open door policy, for my employees when we're working remotely. And it's really saved a lot of time and created great space for those types of conversations that usually would happen organically, but can't because we're working remotely.
Right. Yeah. Love
Very
that.
Good. Mm-hmm.
I see someone here also is talking about stand-ups in the morning. She says, we still do a stand-up in the morning via Zoom, and it reminds me of what our team's doing right now, which is morning huddles, which is usually 15 minutes of what are you doing today?
Yeah.
What questions do you have to get in the way of what the hell you need to do today, And just 15 minutes in the morning, maybe 30 minutes some days when we have big, giant pivots to discuss, perhaps, hypothetically. But yeah, that first thing in the morning I love as well as a ritual. What else? What else comes up for you too, Lauren and Michelle?
I mean, we've just been, I kind of said this before, but we've just been trying to keep things as close to normal as they can be. I've ramped up the communication with all my staff because everything is so unsure right now. And I don't always have answers for them. I mean, for a lot of this stuff, I'm just telling them, I don't know, but I'm, here's what we're doing. Here's what I'm trying to work out to, help soften the blow for all of us. Like we launched a poop scooping service that we had never done before because we can do that outside of people's houses. So thank you. We were thinking about it, and we haven't emailed our clients yet. That's going to go out on Monday, but we the website's there. It's all ready to go. We just need to
honestly, this is what the pivots look like in small business right now.
Yeah, exactly.
That's amazing though. What a great idea.
So I mean, we're hoping that'll help cushion the blow. A lot of our clients have reached out asking how they can help us,
right? Even
though they're not doing walks anymore. And so that would be a really great option. So, that kind of stuff. And then I think for myself, I have some remote friends, and one of them we watch Grey's Anatomy together, but she lives in South Carolina, so we just plan a day and we hit play at the same time and we just chat on the phone. We use a walkie-talkie app called Voxer, but you could use you could just call or you could do anything and so we can't see each other, but we talk, and it's it's something that we both make time for. It's if I have plans with her, I don't do something else. Right. It is our plans. So I think doing that kind of thing, I think the virtual happy hours are a great idea, but especially if you're used to being out and socializing all the time, plan some of this stuff, make some time for yourself to get some interaction, and take some time to talk to your friends about how you're feeling and what's going on and do more than just text.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Netflix party, somebody just put it in there. You can do a
I've
Netflix
done
party
that too.
now.
Yeah,
That's so
it's
cool.
great.
I love that.
I
I
have to
absolutely
check
love
that
that.
out. I saw that on my TV, but I didn't know what it was. I'm excited
Yeah.
about
I
that.
used to do it all the time, so I'm really glad it's back.
Super fun. Yeah, that's
I
super
love
fun.
it. That's great.
So very similar. I have what I call open office hours. I have them at the same thing as Jessica. I have them at the morning, midday, and in the afternoon. But I will tell you that the number one thing that I have said to my people is, no matter what's going on, we can figure this out together. I'm on your side. I'm here for you. So just to reassure them, like, no matter what's happening, if you come to me in the morning, you're like, oh my gosh, one of my kids is sick and I've got to, this is going on and my husband's working and, okay, let's strategize, let's figure this out. And then, can we get someone else to do this other thing you're working on, et cetera. So those meetings are super important to set up because you don't know what's going to go on from one day to another with people, especially when they're working at home. And so, just having those stand-up meetings is super important. Just like I have office hours, go ahead and come and see me. The other thing is that I always tell my team in Slack, like I put in Slack today, I'm going to be on this panel. I'm not going to be available from this time to this time. I will answer you when I get back, just so they know what I'm doing. So they're not like, wait, I'm trying to get a hold of you and you're not here for me, right?
Yeah.
So just to reassure them, this is what I'm doing. Here's, so you're equally responsible to them as they are to you as far as your time is concerned.
I
right?
love that.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's almost sounding like what you're alluding to is what I wanted to end with. And for those tuning in, this is my last question for our panelists. So definitely make sure to throw your questions in for them into chat now as you start to think about them, which is, how can we really create a brave space for people right now? Some people call it a safe space. Others are like, safe is not good enough. Let's go to brave space. And there's slight differences between the two. But as leaders facing global unknowns right now, like, how can we create safety, psychological safety for our teams? And I love reiterating that we're all in this together and we can figure this out. I love what Lauren said earlier about admitting when you don't know the answers, but sharing what you're doing. Jess, what would you add to that?
I mean, I go back to the whole humanity thing, right? Because creating a brave space requires you to take on some risk, right? The employee to take on some risk. Well, risk means there has to be trust in that relationship, right? Between their management, their organization, and them, right? And so there has to be good conversations, good relationships built there in order for people to be willing to take that risk in that brave space right now. So I think even more so now than ever, business is going to have to evolve to be one that's much more human-centered. I mean, we've been moving that way in management for a while. I mean, everything you're reading about, from an HR perspective, managing employees, it needs to be much more human-centric. But even now, I think this whole pandemic, this whole virus situation is going to push us to be just much more understanding and empathetic of each other, and to build those relationships and make sure that we are challenging each other in good ways, not bad ways, right? Like we're being kind to each other in our conversations as employees, as well as management to our staff, or our employees.
Absolutely.
So that's what I would say.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
Anything you'd like to add?
Well, I want to say this, being brave starts with you. So if you're modeling the behavior that you want the other people who report to you to demonstrate. So it's up to you to say, guess what, guys, I don't really know what to do here. Let's get together and talk about it. I want the people that are around me to know that I'm sometimes going to need support too. And I know that I have such a great team that we'll be able to figure it out together. So there's times when I don't know or I'm unsure. We've been working on a project and we've changed the project around based on their feedback. And so ultimately it's you being brave and saying when you don't know and setting the example for other people to know that they can be vulnerable too, that is going to open that up. It's when we're trying to pretend like we've got it all together when we really know we do not. And trying to you don't put on a brave face, you be brave and courageous in admitting your vulnerability. And that's what starts to create that space for others.
Absolutely. Lauren?
I mean, I think just kind of piggybacking on what everybody has said already, but I think for me, one of the first things I did, after when things started changing last week, one school was canceled, which is a big deal for us. Like, we are always slower when school is out. In the summer, it's a little different because people are traveling, but nobody's traveling and school is out, which was a huge like tank to our numbers, frankly. And so my staff saw the writing on the wall,
Right.
and they came to me with ideas. They asked if they could. I asked them for the ideas, but they were already thinking, and kind of like I said in the beginning, you probably hired these people for a reason, and
Yeah.
it's important to listen to them. So,
Right.
the poop scooping idea was I thought about it a while ago, and then one of my managers brought it up like a couple weeks ago, and I was like, yeah, we should get that going. And then once, the proverbial poo hit the fan, we decided to
Literally.
just like go on it. Yeah. Like, and then another manager came up with a merch store. So she's working on that. And this is all great because I don't have a lot of work for them right now. And I'm still paying them. I mean, these are salaried employees. And so, the fact that they came to me and said, like, what can I do to make this better and to keep my job, basically, was really powerful to me. That they want this company to succeed, like, not just because they want to keep their jobs. I mean, of course we all want that, but just because, like, this is important to them. Like, they want to stay here. They want to see us succeed, even though we all know this is going to be a rough few months.
Right.
So hopefully with some of their ideas and some of my ideas, we're going to like soften the blow for the company and weather the storm.
Yeah, I think that's a really great point. And what a key lesson of management, which is to not presume that we have all the ideas, right? Let's crowdsource. Frontline folks know the market best, right? Yeah. And so just thinking that through, whether you're a small business or a very large business, making strategic pivots right now is great. All right, we've got a couple of questions here, one of which I think has been already answered beautifully by other members of the webinar here, or of today's panel. We've got a few questions coming in. One thing I think of all the questions here, what we have time for is this great question from Asia, who's saying, I'd love tips on how exactly to set clear expectations. I feel like we heard a little bit from you, Michelle, on this. Do you want to clarify exactly how do you do that with your staff, especially right now if you haven't been doing it before?
Yeah, and I think it goes to a lot of the other questions I was going in that are going on in here too, which is that I involve my team in setting expectations, right? So we talk about what do we really need, what information do I need to get from them that I may need to communicate up, and what information do they need from me, and on a time basis, would that work logistically to be able to get that information? Because then it also ensures that they have what they need to get you that information. So for instance, we have a monthly thing at the last week of the month, they have to provide me a slide that says, here's what I've accomplished, here's what didn't get done, and here were the obstacles as to why, so that we can strategize as to how to approach that differently for the next month or something. So we came up with that solution that worked for them. They wanted to do that, and the more invested they are in, the more you involve them, the more invested they're going to be in actually complying with the expectations. And that also goes for like software people were asking about that. What I did with my team was I asked them what they thought would work, and then what I did was I assigned people to figure it out and then train everyone else on the team. So it wasn't all my responsibility. That way they all got to learn something, they trained everybody else, and it felt like a team activity rather than a directive.
And just a shout out to all the parents out there, having been raised in a family with 4 kids, and 2 of whom were born a decade after I and my older brother were. I've seen this done very well with children too. Well, what do you think we should be doing on a day-to-day basis right now? Because you came up with this yesterday, so now it's easier to hold folks responsible to norms that they've established or they've been very involved in establishing.
That's right. That's right.
Before we all hop in on that question, or in lieu of that, I should say, I want to ask a different question related to what's happening in chat as well. This one's for Lauren and Jess. In the midst of all this change, how do you weigh the costs and benefits of changing or transitioning to all new communication platforms like incorporating tech, incorporating different management systems or texting or calling or FaceTiming with the need for clarity and simplicity and not overwhelming your employees. How do you make that decision, especially when everyone seems to be defaulting to different communication channels? Thoughts on that?
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Lauren. Sorry.
Well, I was just going to say, I think you need to communicate, right? And so if you haven't been using all of these tools before, like I've been meeting my dog walkers in person, so we have to figure out how to use some of this tech. I mean, we just have to. For some of them, I can do a conference call, but you can only really do like 3 people on your phone. And if the region is 3 people, it doesn't work. So, I think for me, there are some people, some of my staff is going to be fine. Like I'm going to send them a link. They're going to pick up on it. They're going to be like, also, did you know that you can do this with this program? And I'll be like, oh, cool. And some of them I'm going to have to really handhold and walk through. I think one of the reasons I scheduled meetings for everybody next week. And part of why I did that, I mean, I've been talking to them through our text chains like I normally would. But part of the reason I did it that way is because I don't know what's going to happen. And I'm probably not going to know next week either, but that gives me a little bit of time to say, okay, we're going to have our meetings this way and make sure that I know how to set up a Zoom meeting and I'm ready to go and all of that stuff. And we're going to transfer our communication to a Slack channel, or maybe we'll stay on our text chain or whatever we end up doing, so that I can give them clear instructions, because I think we're all going to have to make some changes, and it doesn't matter if it's, it's hard that it's confusing, and I don't want to overwhelm people, but I do want to be able to talk to them. So I think it's important that you make a plan and you figure out how to talk to your staff in the way that works best for you. And then you figure out how to teach them how to do it, but don't try 100 different things with your staff. Take this weekend, or maybe don't work on the weekend because we all need to rest too. But take some time to just try some of these different formats and see what you like best and what you think your staff will respond to the most. Yeah. And then go from there, versus throwing a bunch of stuff at the wall and just hoping your staff.
Let's not pivot like every other day. I know we basically are, but limit it to a pivot a week if we
be thoughtful about it. Yeah.
Definitely.
I was going to add that I'm a big fan. I work in legal predominantly, and I'm a big fan of going to other people within legal who've done this already before and asking their opinions, like what tools are your attorneys able to adapt to? Because attorneys, it's a little hit or miss on how technically savvy they are. So, I'm a big fan of relying on your network, going to others who've done it before you, who've paved that path, and asking them what's working for you, what's not working for you. So you're not putting your firm or your organization in the guinea pig state, where you're giving them the tools to be successful because that this other firm or this other organization has already tried that out and worked out those kinks and can give you kind of some best practices, some guidance. That's where I think having a strong network as a professional is really important. So you can reach out to, other people who have done it before and who can help. And then in terms of all the various options and tools out there, once you've made a selection on that tool, be consistent in choosing that. I think Lauren made that point already once before in this conversation, but you can't be switching it up, every day, every week. Then you will overwhelm people. So
totally,
that would be my advice.
I love it. Well, I just want to thank our incredible panelists again for being part of this. You are now all officially part of the Bossed Up community. Even if this is your first event with Bossed Up ever, feel free to reach out to these incredible panelists. Feel free to get connected, find them on LinkedIn, follow what they're up to. I think Rose put it perfectly in the chat just now when she wrote, just feeling like I'm not alone and others are in a similar boat has been very encouraging, that we will all get through this. It is absolutely right. Now, don't go anywhere yet, because I want to share with you other opportunities to join us virtually in building that sense of encouragement through community. First, all week long, we've been hosting panels like this one. On Tuesday, we started with how to work from home without losing work-life balance. Wednesday, how to handle your personal finances in a crisis, in which, by the way, one of our financial advisors said, I did not cancel my dog walking service because I want to support her business locally.
I didn't either. I still have my dog walker.
We have had some amazing clients. We've even had clients offer to keep paying even though we're not doing dog walk.
Totally.
Like, we're doing dog walks still, but they don't want us to come. And
Yeah,
so
I totally get
it's,
that.
I mean, it's amazing. Like, thank you to all of you who are supporting your small businesses and however you can.
Absolutely. And then yesterday we hosted one on managing stress and maintaining calm with mindfulness experts, really focusing on mental health awareness right now. You can watch all of those on our blog, bossedup.org/blog. You will see them all there. The replays are embedded in the blog post where you were originally asked to register. You can now watch. Same thing will happen with this replay in just a few minutes here. Next week, we are hosting at least 2 more panels. There may be a 3rd one in the works, but this is based on popular demand, what we've been seeing in the chats throughout this week's worth of panels. We're starting with the job searching panel next Wednesday, how the COVID-19 crisis may be impacting your job search and what to do about it. And then managing personal relationships while stuck at home with our loved ones and children and all that fun stuff. We've got 3 licensed marriage and family counselors standing by, ready.
I'll be into that one.
Yeah,
me
ready
too.
to share their wisdom with us.
Yes.
And finally, like, I also want to acknowledge that, yes, this will pass. Like, this is traumatizing. What we're experiencing right now is wildly mass spread and mass impactful disruption. That being said, it is also a time when we can all invest in our overall career resiliency. How can your career not just defend itself right now from taking steps backwards, but actually retool and propel yourself forward in the face of mass uncertainty? And on that note, I would love to invite you to join me in what we do best here at Bossed Up, which is helping women managers in particular cultivate leadership skills. I'm hosting my most popular online training that I've ever hosted, backed by popular demand, that I've been hosting all year long, called What Women Managers Need to Succeed, 3 different times this coming month. And you can register for free for this really in-depth training online at bossedup.org/womenlead. I would love to see you there. And I mentioned it at the top of today's conversation, but our signature program, Bossed Up Bootcamp, is coming back. We're not going to be in San Francisco this weekend, so do not come, but we will be coming back with a vengeance, right? We are excited for the trainings that we have coming up. This is our award-winning weekend-long program for women managers on the rise. We'll be in Denver, DC, and San Diego in the coming months, and we would love to have you join us. For those who aren't familiar with bootcamp, it's not some big mega conference, right? This is something I've been hosting since 2013 in a really intimate level. We're talking 30 to 40 women leaders on the rise coming together for intimate workshop style programming that is all research driven, highly interactive, and it's really designed to propel your career forward, especially if you are super ambitious and want to get to the next level in your career and figure out how to do that. This is some of the curriculum that is covered at Bossed Up Bootcamp, and I would love to help you make the case to your boss as to why they should send you, because this is a very boss-friendly program. We've seen folks who've said to us months after boot camp, you know, when I came back from boot camp, my boss said he noticed a change right away, and then I proposed this new initiative, and now I'm in charge of this new initiative, and everyone's happy. So know that we're here to help you make that case. We've got materials on the website that you can download, a persuasive pitch deck, approval letter, all the above, to help you show why learning how to lead, communicate, manage, balance, network, and plan like a boss is of benefit to your career and the overall benefit of your organization. I know it's kind of a weird time to ask for this, so we will be reminding you that you can continue this conversation, but it does take a few months typically to get coverage. So we want to encourage you to start that conversation now if Bossed Up Bootcamp is of interest to you. And on that note, for the next 30 days in particular, I would love to extend to you a 30% discount as my thank you for joining us in such uncertain times today and being part of this community. if you use the code MANAGE at checkout for Bossed Up Bootcamp, you can immediately save 30% off. So that's another way to get your supervisor incentivized to move forward on this, because this is a long-term investment in your career and your company. I want to thank our panelists again for being here. I'll stick around to answer any questions y'all might have. I will email you when the replay is live. And just to clarify, Asia asked a question in chat, bossedup.org/blog. That is correct. That's where you can find all the replays for all of our panels this week on individual blog posts. There is no question mark in that, though, so keep that in mind. I assume that's what you meant there. Michelle, Lauren, Jess, this has been such a delight. Thank